Skarjune, and this is going to be a panel discussion. I'm going to do a little lightning talk to throw out some introduction to the topic, which is publish or perish or self-publish. We can add to that now. I know that publish or perish is like an academic thing. It goes back before that, the idea being that if you don't publish and if people don't give you citations, you don't matter. You don't get funding. You don't get attention. You don't have influence. And, you know, it's kind of like Twitter. Everybody has to follow each other. And then you have clout. Is it with a C or a K? I don't know. Come on in. We don't have any seats, but we've got little aisle steps. You can find a spot to sit on. And you know, publishing has a long, rich history, and it's a thriving industry, and it's something it's not going away. But it's radically changing right now. And the reason is that, well, if you don't publish, you may not have much attention. And especially you have to publish. I mean, are there any presidential candidates without an autobiography right now? And was that the point? No. So they won't perish, they'll make money, even if they aren't like the president. But for everybody else, it's like, well, what do? You don't have to run for president. For 99 bucks, you can have a book on the Kindle in a week. Really. So people can self-publish. So it's the same game we've always had with publishing, but the rules have kind of changed. And so I'm going to have a 10-minute lightning round here while a few more people come in. Come on in. If you want to step in, round to the back or over to the side, find a spot to join us. So quick, how many people in the audience, or anybody a published author? Oh, we've got a few. Anybody involved with the publishing trade? Okay, two more. Has anybody ever wanted to write a book? Oh, yeah, more hands. Yeah, everybody's got a book. We've got some good stories, yeah. It's not based on stuff that really happened in your life, though, is it? You're not going to tattle on all your friends' stories. Okay, Peter's going to join us, but I'm going to kind of get started. I'm going to limit myself to 10 minutes here. So somebody wants, when it's 9:50, just put your hand up and stop me. So I'm going to jump back 300 years ago when there was a publishing revolution, and you know, everybody knows who Ben Franklin is, and he was all these things. But the first thing he was a publisher, and then he became a writer, and he developed influence, and he was a businessman as well as a scientist and an inventor. And throughout his lifetime, he saw not only publishing and printing be revolutionized in his time in America. You saw America founded through a real political revolution. And he started off as 12 years old here working in his elder brother James's print shop in Boston. And some older guys like me and Tom, and you guys might remember some machines similar to this. That's how I learned to print. But then I learned to do computer graphics on punch cards at the University of Minnesota. I'm having trouble with that on my resume these days. Not working for me. But not only did Franklin get a taste for printing, he wanted to write. His brother wouldn't let him write anything. Most of the things published were, hey, come on up here. Most of the things published were reprints from London journals. But there was a thing where people would write letters under pseudonyms to news sheets as they were printing. And his brother had the first independent paper in the United States, the New England Current. And so Ben kept writing and writing. His brother wouldn't print stuff, so he started leaving letters anonymously where he pretended he was an opinionated book-reading country widow named Silence Dogood. And actually she became rather famous in her time. And so here's Ben's history here. So actually the first colonial newspaper was just before his birth. And he worked with his brother, started the first newspaper. He went to London, worked as a typesetter for a few years. He was sent by the Pennsylvania governor to do some publishing deals because all the equipment came from England, as well as everything was licensed by the British. The things were really tied down. If you didn't have a license, if you didn't know the governor, if you didn't have stamps from the postmaster on everything you did, you couldn't publish, you couldn't distribute, you would be thrown in jail. So Ben came back and he went to Philly. He formed this club called Junto, which is, was a debate club. They would read books. They would discuss things. They were young business professionals, like some of the startup geeks I see in the audience here. We want to get together, discuss things, start new business ventures, and that worked well for him, and he became the co-publisher of the Pennsylvania Gazette. Later, they formed the first nonprofit library in Philly, and then a few years later, he started publishing his popular almanac, and I would say that he was basically the Arianna Huffington of his time. The almanac was kind of like blogging, but he had political influence. He was making money. And what this did is it set the stage for an independent publishing industry based in Philadelphia, so that when Payne published Common Sense, they distributed 500,000 copies in 1 year, in '76, when we had the Declaration of Independence. That would even rock on the Kindle store today, if you could do that. So here we go. I mean, these were just little sheets that, a lot of the newspapers, and then they would start binding them. Very primitive, didn't change, but it was the power of the press that revolutionized this country with people like Ben Franklin. Now, in the past 20 years, we've seen a similar revolution with ebooks. Now, on the left here, what you see is from 1982, the Sony Data Discman, which used a CD, and it's considered kind of the first e-reader. And then you see the popular Kindle Fire on the right, which was a hit last Christmas season. And in 20 years, here's some of the things we've gone through for digital books. So we had the Discman, right after that, the portable document format, which is really common now. I was trying to sell that to a corporation in '95, and they go, "That's crazy, Dave. That's crazy. You can't put publications and have them print anywhere and read on the screen anywhere." It's like, no, really. And now it's like we take it for granted and we don't want to go there anymore. The first e-reader was a popular one was the Rocket eBook in '98. Sony got a modern one out. The Sony was very nice in 2006, and then we start getting the e-ink coming in at that time. Everybody's getting theirs out to the market. You got the Nook, the iPad is doing books. The Kindle Fire comes out now. What's interesting is this year there's a company in Korea, Kyobo, which uses Mirasol technology. It's a color e-ink paper, so it's not backlit. This has been in developed R&D for a few years, but hasn't been practical and usable. But think about it. What if you could take something that was like a Nook or a Kindle, the black and white ones, where you can charge it up, take it for a week to the beach, but you can read color magazines. That's coming out this year. It's already out in Korea, so things are moving very quickly. A lot of these things will still read also HTML, and basically EPUB is an XML wrapper around HTML and CSS, so that they're similar. It's not hard to render the two. And then they'll take PDF, but let's face it, PDF is a static design, doesn't reflow. It's not really made for this kind of reading experience. And now Kindle has their new KF8 out, and that does support HTML5 and CSS3. It doesn't have all the elements. I don't think it has media, but it's got app font face and lots of other things. EPUB 3 has the same specs where it's going to use HTML5 and CS3. So we're going to see things move very quickly to very high-end, nice-looking books coming out as we go forward. And some people say, oh, print is dying, the bookstores are closing. But wait, the publishing industry is thriving. It is thriving. Ebook sales alone last year increased over 100%, reaching $1 billion. The Association of American Publishers has a new quarterly stats they're putting out, and they just got this out a couple weeks ago, and comparing January of this year to last year, total trade revenues were up 27% over the course of 1 year. That is equal to the amount of ebook growth overall. So ebooks are just driving this industry, and I know the Pew Research just put out a report, I think, in the past week, and what they found in a survey, which is what publishers have been finding, is that people who buy ebooks spend more money on books than the average reader. And let's face it, look at the kids today. They're reading, Harry Potter and the Hunger Games. Kids are reading. They're reading, and then the movie's just frosting on the cake there. So the print is growing. It's obviously ebook revenues are driving this. Now some things are in decline, like mass market paperbacks. But let's face it, You know, if you're going to be reading some trashy erotica, you know, on your long commute ride on the bus or the train or whatever, it's like, hey, nobody knows what you're reading on the Kindle. So, you know, all that trashy stuff has gone digital, and so that's in decline. Now, the way it slices up on where are the ebooks versus other things, we can see the whole pie chart there of the different kinds of youth and adult paperbacks, hardcovers, ebooks. You can see how it slices up. What's interesting is that ebooks make up about almost a third of adult books, whereas a much smaller section of children's books, only 17.5%. But that is growing. I think it's growing about triple digits right now. Children's books are just explosive. And the trend looks like this. We've hit a spike point right now. I mean, look how flat things were up through 2008. Then the trend starts to pick up from 2008, 2009, and right now it's just going through the roof. And what the problem is that we get good numbers from traditional established publishers. We don't really have the best numbers on independent books going through the Kindle or through other independent markets, and that's where you see that green line going straight up. That's right now. It's just going through the roof. Now, how many books are being published? We don't really know. Traditionally, 300,000, over 300,000 in 2010. I couldn't find numbers for 2011. But look at those, the self-published numbers are in the millions. It's just through the roof. So what's self-publishing? Well, self-publishing is for dummies, right? Anybody can publish now. Well, it's not just for dummies. It's what it is that we've reached a point where there are multiple services that are very competitive. You know, some of the Smashwords and Lulu have been around. Pubit is the Barnes & Noble official service, whereas KDP is the official Amazon service. One that launched this year, BookBaby, brought the price down to $99, and they negotiated distribution deals with every market. Okay, my time is almost up. I'm going to roll here. So, should everybody be an independent writer? Well, Mark Twain said, write without pay until someone offers pay. If nobody offers in 3 years, saw wood. There he is writing in bed, which is a good way to go. There's been a lot of famous self-published authors, from Ben Franklin up to Mark Twain. If you look at the rejection letters that some people got, you know, luckily we got Chicken Soup for the Soul and Dr. Seuss and Jonathan Livingston Seagull pretty easily. But look how difficult it was for people like Louis L'Amour and Jack London, famous writers, to get their stuff published. They were rejected by publishers. So self-publishing is not a new idea. It's like people have stories. People want to publish those stories. People want to read those stories. Now, to finish off, last year, Kindle Top 100. What's interesting is there were only 18 self-published titles. They only tend to stay on there for a month or two, and they tend to sell for about $1.40. There's these tricks where they do them for free, 99 cents for a while, then maybe move it up to $2.99, whereas traditional books are closer to, you know, the $9.99 point, and they stay on for months or for a year or more. Some of the top traditional published authors. Of course, our story in Minnesota. Anybody heard of Amanda Hocking? Yeah, she had incredible success. Just to give you her numbers, and we're done. She lives in Austin, Minnesota. She was employed as a group home worker until 2010. She had written 17 novels as a hobby. She liked to write. She started writing in high school in her spare time. In 2010, she started self-publishing as ebooks, started using some savvy social media, some of these Amazon marketing tricks where you put them down to free or 99 cents for a few weeks, get them to spike, and then you jack the price up and keep moving them. Well, here's what she did. She was selling thousands a day in a matter of months. By March 2011, less than a year, she'd sold over 1 million copies of 9 books, earned $2 million, and immediately signed a $2 million contract with St. Martin's Press. So, we have lots of headlines. The industry is changing fast. I've got some questions for our panel who I'll introduce, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. So, I'm David Skarjune. I am a consultant. My little firm at my home office is Word and Image. I work on electronic documents. I do content strategy, content marketing. I've been starting to work with some authors and publishers the past year, but as this market picks up, we've got Patrick Rhone here, who is a writer, essayist, and technology consultant. He is an independent author of 2 books, Enough and keeping it straight, you, me, and everything else. And it's on a little press called the First Today Press. Then we have the fireman. We have Peter Edstrom. He's a senior developer interactive at PRI, Public Radio International. He worked on their interactive ebook, kind of the lead developer, project manager, called Teacher Redesign. Peter is a change agent, part digital strategist, part project manager, part software developer. And Tom Kerber in the middle is chief publishing executive at Beavers Pond Press, one of the many independent presses we have here in Minnesota. Both Tom and I and Tom Keys here were members of the Midwest Independent Publishers Association. There's also a Minnesota Publishers Roundtable that has meetings, and there's the Loft and Open Book and all kinds of publishing going on in this town. And so Tom leads the publishing team with working with authors, team members, and business partners, setting strategic direction for his press, and he says things are changing really fast, and he enjoys that. So Tom, you're a traditional publisher. What have you had to do to adapt to these rapid changes over the past couple of years?
Well, you need to, first of all, say the words that change is good, not bad. Don't try and fight what is. It's people talk about Amazon and all the negative things they're doing. In a lot of ways, Amazon is really leading the charge in change, and just admire them and try and follow them. When I've looked, I've only been in the publishing industry 5 years. Prior to that, I was in the high-tech industry, and so I was, 15, 20 years ago, I was with Omega when they did the zip drive, and that was a big change to the computer industry back then. But with publishing, the traditional worlds, the elephants that ran the world out of New York, they're basically dinosaurs. They probably don't know they're dinosaurs yet, but they are. And ebooks, that's where things are going to be at. With fiction, definitely it's there. There's still going to be a lot of books printed, but they're going to be printed for different reasons. The children's books, I think, will stay with printing for quite a while. There's ebooks coming there. But the rest is just being nimble. But what we're focused on is really putting out high-quality books, trying to be in the top end of the marketplace, not just putting out garbage. We work with the authors, extensively one-on-one, and really just listen and be nimble. And my staff is, basically, right around 30 or younger. So you got to keep the young kids know what's going on, and some of the older ones have to, try and keep up.
Now, over the past few years, have you started converting a lot of the books from your back catalog to ebooks, or has there been a way to figure out which ones you do, which ones you don't?
Well, the Beavers Pond, the author actually owns the book. The publisher doesn't own the book, so
it's up to them.
So we're different. I've hired a person to do nothing but ebooks in the last month, and that's what he's going to be focused on. We've done some of the backlist for the authors. The new books we do probably 20 to 30% of it, but it depends on what the book is. Most of the authors want it. We charge to convert. Some will go to some of the alternatives out there because they think it's easier. But what I offer is a one-stop shop that says, pay me a little bit of money. It's going to be out on the 5, 6, or 20 ebook readers out there, and I'll send you a check each month. And so I try to keep it simple. You can do it on your own, but that's when you start getting into the software and all the EPUB not being EPUB, and the upload not being simple, and a 20-page contract, and all kinds of different ways of doing it. But that's going to get easier as I believe the devices will diminish to lesser, and you're not going to have all these choices out there, because I can go back to the PC industry 25 years ago when you had probably 20 PC companies, and now you're down to 2 or 3 are really the PC and the Mac.
Now, with print versus ebook, with new projects, are you doing both printing processes, or is that a problem? Is it a different process for both?
There's parts of it that are the same. The front end, which is writing a good book, getting good editing, making certain it reads right, that's common to both. The back end, which is how do I create demand for the product, they're very similar, because you have a book on a shelf in Barnes & Noble doesn't fall off the right way unless you do something to create demand for it. The book on an e-reader out there, same thing. You got to create demand for it somehow. So the front end and the back end are the same.
Is it driving up production prices though? Because it's traditionally we'd use like InDesign for doing static, and then but it's a different format because you've got to have global text for the ebook. So does that double the workload on the back end for the print?
If you want to do a printed book, you have to use InDesign and lay it out. If you want to do an ebook, you can start with a Word file, you can start with a print-ready PDF, you can start with lots of different things. The matter, you got to convert it into EPUB, and you still got to proofread it to make certain flows correctly. So it's, the design part, the book layout part is, you have to go two paths, two costs. But the cover is common. Like I said, the front end text making it flow is common. With an ebook, you got pictures in it. It has to be a tag picture in the flow. The ebook can't handle call outs or other unique things you might do in a book to make it look good.
And do authors want both, or do they expect both?
They would like both. It comes down to cost.
It does cost more, yeah.
Yeah, it does cost more. I think what you're going to find is that more authors will start with an ebook and probably jump to a printed book as a second choice. Because you can do some testing with the ebook. It also gives you a better chance to catch just things that are not right in the flow of a book. You can edit a book like crazy, and you can still have issues with it. But with an ebook, it gives you a chance to test it. You can always print it. And I think you're going to see both continue. Fiction, you're not going to see a lot of printed fiction. That's going to be an ebook. Memoirs, depends on who the audience is, who you're after. It doesn't sound to the audience, who the author's after from a customer standpoint.
Let's ask an author here. So Patrick, now, when did you come up with how long ago did you come up with your idea to start publishing your books? Because you were blogging first, right?
Yeah. And actually my first book is mostly stuff that was taken from my various websites and piled together, which actually is lesson number one. A lot of people have probably already written a book and they don't realize it. It's all about the way that you decide to look at something, because the way that we frame things changes the way we see them. Secondly, so it definitely started with that. It started with me starting to see common threads between a lot of the things I had been writing, and starting to say, you know what, this thing over here and this thing and that thing and this other thing, if I were to take these and polish them up, that would actually be a pretty good book. And so that's what I did.
Now, how did you handle the choice of how do I publish? Did you think right away I'll just get it on the Kindle, or do I have to find a publisher? What were your
the first thing I did was I compiled all that stuff myself and attempted to lay it out and attempted to try to figure out, okay, what's the best way for me to get this up there. And I got really as far as compiling all the stuff, and then I said, I have no clue what to do with all of this stuff. Nothing's working. It's not really flowing right. I don't quite get how these pieces really, like, I can see it, but I can't see it. And so I have a friend who had a very small versioning publishing business. I like to call it a micro publisher. I think that there's this room, this niche that's waiting to be filled, and he's one of the early people to fill it.
Yeah, just to clarify, now traditionally we've called this vanity publishing, where an author self-publishes and prints a bunch of books, puts it in the trunk of their car, drives around and talks to libraries and sells them to all their friends. And then they end up in the garage next to the Mary Kay stack. And it had a really bad name, and book reviewers wouldn't touch it, but that's changed, and now these micro presses are kind of the leaders in publishing.
I mean, because there's still this expectation. The problem with self-publishing is that writers are not necessarily good editors, nor are self-editors, nor are they graphic designers, nor do they know about the various layouts you have to do for all of these different formats. If you want a print book, that's one layout. If you want it on the Kindle, that's another layout. If you want it in iBooks, it's another layout. If you want it as an EPUB, that's another layout, right?
And you had a contact, though, who did all this stuff as a collaborator, but well, you didn't have to go and try to figure out, well, who's the big publisher who could do this for me? You
Right,
really
exactly.
could do it as a startup.
Right, exactly. And so and that's exactly what he does. He acts as almost like a project manager who coordinates an editor and coordinates a layout designer, and takes a small cut for doing so. So I don't have to pay up anything front end. He just takes a small cut of whatever gets sold. And what's nice is that so then it's the editor's job to help me figure out the threads and help me put this all together and to make it actually, I don't know, read well without typos and grammatical errors and everything else. And then, once she and I are done working together, then it goes off to, he handles the layout and design with the designer. And so I can just concentrate on the writing.
Yeah. So how long did it take to get the book into the...
I'd say from the start of me saying, help, I don't know how to do this, to actually having it published was a good 4 months or so, for book number 1. And book number 2 was longer, took about 6.
But that one you were writing more from...
Yeah, right, exactly. So book number 2, Enough, is what it's called, I was mostly written, from scratch for the purpose of the book and not published elsewhere. And I wrote it, I did the first draft entirely on the iPad.
Ah.
So that's the other kind of fun detail, fun fact about that. And the pieces I didn't do on the iPad, I did on the iPhone.
Now, Tom, is the cycle shortening up, or is it because it's extra work and it's something new?
Yeah, it's getting very, very short. We can do it as fast as 3 months from manuscript to having the book printed.
Yeah, now I read that some big authors even complain that their agents get them a book deal and then things stall for a year or two, and some major authors are leaving their publishing contracts and going independent because they can find agents and creative collaborators who have kind of left the trade as things have gotten tightened up, and people are seeing opportunity to just collaborate project by project and do these things really fast to launch books.
Well, there are no rules anymore.
Okay.
There are barriers to entry are very small or minimal. The traditional publishers, the royalty publishers, would say we have a fall season, a spring season, and they would do 9 months of prep, get catalogs together, do all this other stuff, and since I've been with Be Responsive 5 years, we basically ignored all those rules and say, the book goes to the bookstore when the book is done. We're not going to try and have a season because the season is old school, doesn't make sense. And so you can go as fast as the author wants or as slow as the author wants. We really work with the author, collaborate very much like Patrick said, and just spend your time with them. But you really got to get the book good on the front end. Otherwise, you got garbage on the back.
I'd like to riff a little bit on the no rules thing. I actually see it actually even a step further than that, because what you both described so far is a manuscript that it ultimately ends either on paper, in what we call a book, or on a Kindle or iPad, what we call an eBook. And there was no manuscript for the book that I worked to publish.
So first tell us what T-shirt redesign is. So that's an iBook from Public Radio International, and what was the idea, and what does it actually do? Because it's only an interactive iPad.
Yeah. So Teacher Redesign is a project that Public Radio International took on as an experiment. We knew that the iBook author software was coming out from Apple, and we said, well, we'd like to try this out and see if we can get something out there and experiment with it. We've experimented with satellite radio in the past. We were the first public media companies to have podcasts out there. So this was kind of a natural fit for us. We took some content that had already been created by one of our shows, Studio 360, and reformatted it and started pulling in a couple of additional, so the manuscript, there was no manuscript. We had great audio. There's 4 audio clips in the book. There's one video, 5-6-minute video, something like that, professionally made video in the book.
This is what we call an enhanced ebook, but it sounds like you had the enhancements before you had the book.
Exactly.
Okay, it's kind of a reverse process. That's very cool.
You know, part of the original material that we worked from was this redesign that HyperAct out in Brooklyn had put together. So we had a PDF with some great images from it, and so we took those images, the audio, the video, and we said, okay, well, we've got most of the book here already, we just don't have any words in it. So we worked with a few of the authors that we have, or the writers that we have, I guess, on staff, and said, can we borrow some of your time to do this? And they pulled together, it's not a long book by any means. It's from start to finish, I think it's 40 pages, 50 pages, something like that. That's 50 pages without a whole lot of text and a lot of images, a lot of photos, a lot of graphics, video. But with, put enough text in there to stitch it all together and got it edited and ultimately published. For my, so when I go back to the throwing out the rules, we started without a manuscript. We said we're going to make a book, and that didn't bother us at all, actually.
No. Well, I think that increasingly the opportunity lines between what is a book or a creative piece, a work of art, and what is an app are beginning to blur. There's a recent one that just came out by a blogger who I follow for a long time, Robin Sloan. It's called Fish, a tap essay, and it's available on the App Store for the iPhone, iPad, and it really is this little beautiful personal manifesto that you kind of read thought by thought, line by line, by tapping it to turn the pages. There's no back, there's no board, but it's this evolving, interactive little app that you can run again once you get to the end. But it's designed to be this complete little 5 or 10 minute experience.
So there was mention of children's ebooks being a little bit slower to market. And I think the reason for that is that the expectation of children's books is much higher. Nobody wants to read a digital version of
Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss, right. It needs pictures, and if you're reading that on an iPad, pictures aren't good enough.
You want
audio,
pictures to do something, the audio,
there's a lot more to it, and the story is sometimes secondary.
Children's book, a lot of ebook for a children's book is really almost a video, with lots of apps mixed in with it. The cost of it can be very large. You're starting probably at a couple $1,000 and moving up. But the other side of it, they don't really expect to pay a lot for that as an ebook. They're looking for, I've heard of some $2, $3, $5. So the economics don't work for the author. They can certainly work on some of the ebooks for some of the children's books. There's enough volume there, but if you want to make a bet of $10,000 up front that you'll sell 5,000 to break even.
There's some great titles out in Apple's App Store. The Monster at the End of the Book is one that I got from my kids pretty early on, and it's you flip through it, but there's audio to it. There's a little bit of text that highlights the words as you go through. And this is not a manuscript that was converted to anything. This is a from the ground up app that somebody built.
Yeah. Well, I think tools like iBook Author are kind of bringing even that barrier to entry down. I think that, like with the print or I should say that the traditional author, you can self-publish all day long, all you want, but I would urge you to, if it's something that you're thinking about doing, find, at the very least, hire someone, a professional editor, hire a professional designer. Even if you pay them out of your own pocket, because there's a difference between a bunch of words that have been thrown up on some screen or printed on some page, and a book and an ebook that looks professional and that people will want to read.
The bulk of the work might have already been done. Like Patrick with his blog, a lot of his book was already written. The work to make a book was compiling that together.
Yeah. And that was the hard part, right? The writing actually, for me, was the easy part.
It needs to be an outside person, not the local English teacher, not someone you know. It really needs to be a professional who does books, and they can do it at different levels. They can give you an assessment ahead of time. How much time will it take? So you have a cost, and look at some of their finished products. Look at the books they've done. But it really, if you don't have that on the front end, it's going to be more and more difficult to get any volume on the back end where people thought you're going to get reviews that are not kind. To overcome that is almost impossible.
Okay, I've got one more topic real quick about marketing. Then I'm going to take some questions from the audience next. So bringing up the sales and the marketing, and why do people want books? And we know that there's more books being published. Most of them are going to be barely read or only sold for free. So, what do you think about marketing? Is marketing changing, Tom? And what have you two done to market your books? Real quick.
Marketing is changing significantly. You got to be out there with social media, blogging, tweeting. Just being out there and getting the book in front of people. People try the old traditional book signings. They're not. But the only thing they're going to do is get you into a bookstore, and the book will be on the shelf. Many books will be very successful if you do local things. We encourage authors to do a lot of back of the room selling. There's one book here that's going around that Sam Richter did, Take the Cold Out of Cold Calling, that we did about 4 years ago. Sam is out there doing lectures, speeches. We've got a lot of authors who are consultants. The book is their business card. It goes with them. It's a charity tie-in where they, someone had a disease or something, overcame it. It's all very focused. There's got to be the book has to have a message. It has to have something that more than your family wants to read. It's for your family. We can do it, but it's not going to go anywhere. But you got to get out there with other medias. Local newspapers love local authors. You're really going to be local with your book. You're not going to be national to start with.
Well, heck, you had an audience, but it wasn't just local, right? It's a broad,
very broad
audience on the interweb.
Yeah. And the success of both of my books has been due to the fact that I spent years building that audience for the book, right? The book was just something else to provide to the audience, right? It's almost like a value add, come for the blogging, stay for the book, right? And I
kind of like a rock band, comes with the concert, buy the T-shirt.
Exactly, right. But I think that increasingly the marketing side even is kind of going through this upheaval where audiences are being built on the front end, whereas an author, or as a writer, even going to a publisher, even a small publisher or whatever, to be able to walk in there and say, here's my page views from last month. I would like a book deal. And they go, oh, okay, we see that we'll automatically, we can run the numbers on this and say, okay, 10% of these people will likely buy a book. I mean, pre-made sales that you're coming to the table with right away. I mean, who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah. Now, Peter, it sounds like at PRI, you guys had an audience and you had content and you wanted to shape that. So how did you already know? Was marketing a big concern when you decided to do this as an experiment, or did you already have the audience?
It was a part of the process. So we've got a marketing department, and I can't do all the things that they did, but they put on-air ads on. They work with stations to have those available.
And
Put them on websites.
if you had to guess, how many stations do you guys syndicated on across the country?
PRI is 800 stations.
About 800 stations. So you've got a mouthpiece there, and you've got people who are following your shows.
We do.
Was it always intended to be free?
No. You need more details. No, we went through the process of getting, there's two kinds of bookstore accounts that you can get with Apple. One is free and one is paid. The paid one comes with more requirements. That's the one that we got. So you've got to submit a tax ID number to them. They have to have their legal department verify that. There are bins that you have to purchase for each book, even though it's electronic. Our focus was speed in this particular case. So we went from 0 to submitted to Apple in about 3 weeks, and we're pretty happy with that speed. If we had worked through all kind of the legal issues and the rights issues that charging for it brings up much faster, then there's no way we could have done it in 3 weeks.
Do you have a question? I've got a question over here.
Yeah, so you guys just been talking, the word music has come up several times, and since we are seeing the shift from print books to digital, for example, I have a music background and I have some rights to some music. What is the future for licensing of, say, rights that I own to music in an ebook now that we can play music? I.e., there's
compositions or performances?
Compositions or performances, either. There's the Harry Fox agency that I think triggers a mechanical right when you cover a song on another artist. What's happening now?
Well, I can tell you from our perspective, we had music in before audio clips, and we actually, that was one of our rights issues with this particular book. And
Do
we
you just
actually
automatically generate royalty payments to the author?
no, I think that all happens contractually.
Okay.
But we actually went back and remixed all those audios without that, so that we could put royalty-free stuff into it and get it out there.
So the performing rights organizations like ASCAP, are they monitoring ebooks, looking for violations? Is there anything like that?
I think that their lawyers would be looking for that, but it's a different model. The playing music versus selling products. And but yeah, these things are becoming very confused.
This sounds
Like I say, with you have interactive content, audio, video merging with a book
People are going to want
format.
that money.
They're very different. They're different revenue models.
This will help sell books, and some
Yeah,
people want to
yeah.
make money.
Well, there's
and that said, I think while we may think of this as, there's this whole new problem, I don't know that it's all that new. It's just that the medium has changed. I mean, we've had interactive books since the CD-ROMs that you used to pick up for $10 off the software discount shelf at the local CompUSA or whatever, right? I mean, that this has been a model that has been around for a while as the delivery has changed.
Sure. In fact, going back to hypermedia, fantasy games. Now there are books that are interactive fantasies that are basically a game where you write the plot as you go through. You can make the plot as you go through the book. It's like stuff from the 80s.
Choose your own
hypermedia.
Yeah.
Question here.
Does every media use the same ISBN number? Apple, Kindle, or you got to get one for each?
No,
Tom?
They use the same.
one ISBN for all.
Just one.
One per
Wait,
title.
so
One for the ebook, one for the printed
print.
book.
Yeah.
One for print? No, Tom, you
One's
understand it's different?
Yeah.
We've always done one for Amazon, one for EPUB, and one for the printed one.
So is the question, can you reuse an ISBN number
And
from?
no, you cannot.
Right.
No. ISBN numbers identify not only the publisher, but the issue of the book. So as an example, if you reissue your program, let's say that 2 years from now you enhanced it, so you reissue the teacher's book with new content, That is a new release, it needs a new ISBN number.
Yeah, Apple was really clear with us too, that
Yeah.
even if there was a printed version of the book, we could not use the same ISBN.
Yeah, because we've got books that have been
It's a barcode,
revised,
basically.
and they have new ISBN numbers. That's-
Yeah, and if you make a change to the book, then that's a revision, new ISBN. So, question over here on the side.
A couple questions. So one, I self-publish a book called the Thought Leaders Project, and it's been pretty successful. But one of the things I was really interested in, I started it off as an ebook, and then we created a print-on-demand version through CreateSpace with Amazon, and the sales of the print book have actually been higher and much more profitable than the ebook. So I'm curious, is there any stats around that, or if you've other experiences? And then the second question around marketing, other than distribution through, all the players we talked about here, any suggestions on finding niche channels? This is a nonfiction. It's very targeted towards hospitals and hospital marketing. Any thoughts on
I
alternate
can talk to the
distribution
second
channels?
one there. Hire a social media expert. They know a huge amount of detail about how to scan Twitter, scan Facebook, and find these micro communities all over the place. And that's going to be, to find those and to participate in them is going to be your best bet from that angle.
And the thing is, the thing is that what's happening right now is there's a lot of publishing groups and different distributors in the trade, and there are wars with Google, with Amazon, where they're breaking contracts and they're refusing to distribute each other's stuff now. And then also Google launched an independent bookstore thing. They wanted to broaden the playing field. They have announced they're going to cut that going into next year. So there are publishing wars right now on these distribution channels. It's getting very hairy. So it's easier to publish, easy to get them out there, but there are huge wars going on, and these are like multi-million-dollar contract wars. Question in the back there.
I wanted to just real quick just answer question number one, because question number one didn't get answered, and that is, in my experience, it's been the exact opposite. The Amazon Kindle sales of my book are double every other medium. So the print-on-demand paperback, the EPUB, and for one of the books, iBooks. I was blown away with my first book at how, it's like, where did all these Kindle people come from? Where the hell are they? Because they've become my new best friends. Yeah, so I don't know why your experience has been different.
Although we're seeing a lot of people own both the electronic copy of a book
And the paper copy, yeah.
And I think that's what's being driven in this particular case.
Right.
And sometimes it's even in fiction, but we do see it periodically.
Well, and I do offer anyone who buys a paper copy of my book to shoot me an email with a proof of purchase, and I will gladly shoot you the electronic.
Yeah, it's very contextual.
I want to get it everywhere.
It's very contextual. Recently, I read a book, Skarjune by Vanessa Basalka, her first novel. I caught wind of it on an announcement through Majors and Quinn. I downloaded it to my Nook and read it, and I saw she was coming to do a reading, and she's on the coast. West Coast, she's coming to do a reading at Majors and Quinn. So I went to Majors and Quinn, and when I was there, it's like, oh yeah, I got to buy a paper copy because I wanted to sign it. I'm not going to give her a magic marker to write on the note. Question in the back, you've been waiting.
How do wannabe authors who don't have friends who run micropresses and things, who might be a little wary of Amazon, link up with editors and publishers?
Ask around today. Are you a graphic designer?
There's actually going to be there's a vendor fair at MIPA coming up this month, right?
April
20th. Yeah.
Yeah. So these guys, we can tell you about that.
There are graphic designers here who are hungry.
Yeah, there are publishers and any kind of partners.
Yeah.
Vendor fairs for interested.
There's a vendor fair Wednesday evening at the Jolly Center on Washington Avenue, real close to the law, the open book.
And go to MIPA.org, and you'll find information on vendor fair.
And go to law. Law can help you hook up with some of these resources.
I
Okay, I think
heard
we're out of
about
time here.
editors and slush piles and wondering how...
Hey, feel free to mix with these guys during the day, ask some more questions. Thanks a lot for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.